When I was in college, I needed a job, and so I applied at HCMC, Hennepin County Medical Center, which is just outside of the North Central Bible College where I went to school. And I got a job as a food galley, where I would serve food to the people in each of the rooms. I would have to follow the dietary guidelines if it was a puree diet or if it was a diabetic diet, peanut allergy, or if they were gluten-free, or if they had low sodium, high sodium. They were going to entrust me to do this, which is ironically because I could have killed people. I filled out the form, I got the job, and I was feeding people one night in the hospital, just like a normal galley service. I was collecting the trays after dinner was done, sort of in the evening, and I was in an abandoned part of the hospital, not abandoned, just not housed at the moment, that was very close to the OB side of the hospital, the place where the women go and give birth. The OB wing, I guess is what you would call it. The OB wing, right? Is that right? It's right enough for me because I can't say gynecology. The OB wing is where I went, and the lights were off, and there was this woman walking with an IV and a very large, clearly visible basketball. I mean, this woman was ready to explode. Ladies, do you remember that moment? Like when you were pregnant and you were this big, you wanted that baby out of you. This is what this woman was doing. She was walking to induce labor. Raspberry tea, spicy food, some other things on that list encourage labor. Walking is one of those things that I was referencing. Walking. And the woman is out walking, and all of a sudden, I just sort of nod and give her a little, hello, how you doing? I just kept going, and then I hear this blood-curdling scream, this shrieking scream that came out of the woman, and I ran back to see her, and she's on the ground on the back of herself with tile now being soaked with blood and water underneath her gown. And I'm in college, and so I just see this, and I'm like, oh. And I'm the food guy, I got some leftover Salisbury steak if you want it. So I take off running to the nurse's stand, and I'm like literally a city block away from where this woman is, and I'm speaking in sentence fragments, out of breath. I'm like, woman, water, blood, help. So the nurse says, where is she? And I was like, and she got on the horn and was like, this is a 481 in progress. And, I don't know what a 481 is. That's from a cop show, but that's what I thought she said. And we took off running. I had towels, and she was running. A nurse was running. They're on the PA system. And we get to the woman, and the nurse and I are the first two back on the scene. And this baby is coming out. And so the woman says, here, hold this. Hand me a bunch of towels. And then she flips the nightgown back up. And I'm like, holy health class. What is happening? Oh, my word. I'm like, I'm in Bible college. I'm not supposed to see this. I'm not even married or dating someone. And I'm like, oh, wow. So I'm getting a little woozy, and the nurse says, are you okay? Get a hold of yourself. And I'm like, okay. And I'm holding the towels. And then she goes, here, hold this. And she hands me the woman's leg. I have the woman's leg and towel, and right there. And the blood-curdling screams continue, and I watch this baby come into the world in front of me. And for 8 years, I never wanted to have kids. Might have had something to do with it. Now I have 3. But all through the process of every birth that my wife has endured, I got to tell you, becoming a mom, just becoming a mom takes work. Friends of mine from St. Louis, Josh and Kim, they had a dream of having a baby of their own, but they couldn't get pregnant. The doctors weren't really sure why. They just couldn't have a baby. So into this process, years into this process, they decided that they would adopt. They found a mother that had chosen life, and they were going to adopt this child that she didn't want. She was going to carry the baby to term and then literally give Josh and Kim this baby boy. Well, the day came, Kim is in the delivery room, and Josh is too, and they have the cameras and the car seat and all of the things, even showers and hopeful expectations within their heart that they would never even speak what were there just a breath away. And the baby enters the world, and the mother decides in a moment to keep the child. Their hearts are ripped out, but it doesn't end there. A few months later, they adopted a little baby boy of their own. Even adopting to become a mother takes work. My sister-in-law, Andrea, beautiful woman, because she looks like my wife. Andrea is an amazing woman, and she carried a baby full term. Her name was Laura. And she gave birth to Laura. And Laura died within a few hours because of one simple, small chromosome that should be there, that was there and wasn't there. And the only difference between the mother that brought her baby home and Andrea, who buried Laura, was the number on the door of their hotel room, hospital room, their house, their address. Just the numbers. And she had to go home to Sophie, to Dexter, to Ellie, and to Jude, and to continue to be a mom in the face of that. To become a mom by birth takes work. To become a mom by adoption takes work. To become and continue to be a mother, especially when it's hard, takes work. My wife went on a trip. She was gone what seemed to be an eternity because I had to carry and care for the 3 children, 6, 3, and 1. Danielle went on a trip, and she was gone literally for 2.5 hours to Target. And I had to carry the responsibilities of caring for these 3 children. They're lucky they didn't die. Guys, fulfilling the role of mom or becoming Mr. Mom or being like a mom takes work. Guys, if you've ever had to, husbands, grandfathers, if you've ever had to be that mother in that moment, it takes work, it takes effort. When I was a little boy, at Mother's Day, I would go out into the field and I would try and find flowers for my mom, wildflowers. I'd pick up all kinds of different flowers. Well, this one time that I went out looking for wildflowers, I didn't know this, but I picked up a whole bunch of poison ivy and I put it in the bouquet with Mom. I just thought it was a pretty sort of, tri-folded leaf here. And I had my hands literally swelled shut, and I gave them to my mom, and she tells the story so great. It's not what happened to me that she remembers, but what she remembers is how she felt because of the effort that it took for me to honor my mom. Honoring moms take work. If you have a mother-in-law, honoring your mother-in-law takes work. Don't say amen if she's in here. That is not the cue. It takes work to birth. It takes work to adopt. It takes work to continue to be. It could take work to become. It takes work to honor. And moms, it even takes work to choose what's best and really be a mom. I was in Uganda, Africa, outside Lake Victoria, which is known as the Pearl of Africa. So many beautiful places in Africa, but Lake Victoria is known as the Pearl of Africa. Breathtaking in all of its splendor and awe. And outside of this beautiful place in Africa, I was confronted with many things that challenge my definition of beauty and my involvement in those things. And a mother, as I was leaving in this little small plane, brought her child, and through a translator, she just said, "Pastor Eric, I want you to take my baby because you will give it a better life." What do you do with that? Moms choosing to be a mom, it takes work. It takes work. There's a Jewish proverb that may not be so theologically accurate, but it's well stated. It says, God couldn't be everywhere, and he can't do everything, so he had to create mothers. How true that is. It takes work. Good old-fashioned blood, sweat, grit, tears to be a mom. I think every single one of us in this church today can be encouraged if you're not a mother and challenged if you're not a mother what it takes to be a mother with 3 characteristics. If you are a mother, you can be challenged with 3 characteristics of a mother. You can be encouraged in these 3 characteristics because it's who you are. For those of us that aren't mothers, you can be challenged because this is what a mother is. 3 things. Jesus, I just pray as we look to your word today, as we see what mothers truly are, that you would encourage, that you would challenge the mothers and all of us here. God, I just pray that your Holy Spirit would fill in the blanks where my words definitely cannot go, where you would speak to the situations where the mother wasn't exactly the one they'd pick out of a magazine, where you speak to the places where mother has been gone long ago or tragically taken in an instant or not able to be here today. I just pray that you would make up where I fall short as we celebrate mothers today. In Jesus' name, amen. The National Geographic published a story after some wildfires that were literally taking over massive amounts of acreage. Farmlands were being destroyed by the second because of these wildfires. Farmlands destroyed by wildflowers. That'd be amazing. Look at all these black-eyed Susans. What are we going to do? There's baby's breath everywhere. Call the fire department. They published a story about these wildfires that a firefighter came upon a farm that had been scorched. The earth was literally scorched. And they found this hen that was in the kind of a cleft of a tree that had its feet charred off and its wings completely burnt. And this bird, this mother hen was clearly dead. The firefighter bent down to pick up the bird, and out from underneath the bird's scorched, smoke-filled ash wing came 3 baby chicks, very much alive. That story's not true. Great story, but it's not true. National Geographic actually had to go back and they had to say, well, this was a manufactured story. This was the way that we were trying to tell it. And there was this huge conflict of myth and mystery. And for a long time, I thought, that is not true. And then I read the news last week in Menasha, Wisconsin, when a woman literally cleared a bridge as a gunmen opened fire on her and her children, and the doctors said she took 3 bullets in her body, and it's medically astounding that she could carry her 2 children to save their life off the bridge while this unmasked, unnamed gunman fired 3 bullets into her chest cavity. How could she get off that bridge inflicting those wounds? It's a mystery. So maybe it is true. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not a hen, but maybe in reality, moms The first characteristics of a mother that you need to know that you can be challenged in if you are not a mother is that moms are a border. Moms are a hedge of protection. They're a border for us. Like a protective barrier. Like mother hens that would be willing to die for their chicks. In Hebrew, there's a word for border. Well, let me back up just a second. In the Hebrew language, there is numeric value associated with different words. So if a word has a number, it's not just the meaning of the word, but it's actually also the number of the word if you add up the letters and what they value. It's Hebrew numerology, if you will. It's a fancy word for it. Chai lattes, anybody like those? Chai lattes, they're great. They're amazing. They make you feel awake and alive. Well, the word chai in Hebrew, if you look at it through that lens, it's actually translated awake and alive. That's why when you drink too many chai lattes, you sort of start to feel a little bit too much awake and a little too much alive. You know what I'm saying? Okay? And if you add up the number of the word in Hebrew, it's actually a numeric value of 18. And that's why when babies are born, when there's new life or there's things that are being celebrated, that gifts are given in multiples, even now today, of 18. Like 18 chai lattes. Don't try that. But all that to say is numbers make a difference when you're reading the language of Hebrew. And there's a word for border in Hebrew, and it's gaval. It has a numeric sum of 41. And there's a word for mother, which is ayam in Hebrew. And that has also a numeric value of, you guessed it, 41. Because moms are like a border. Moms are like a hedge of protection. Exodus 6, you read about a little boy named Moses that was put into a basket. Jochebed, his mother, literally sees death at her son's door. She makes the basket, puts him in the basket, and becomes a border, doing the hard things that mothers do, making the decision that she didn't want to make. And she becomes a hedge in protection. In Moses' life, if you read about it later in his life, there are borders after borders that he is for God's people. Because he learned it from his mom, because that's what moms are. Moms are a border. They are a hedge of protection. John 8, you can read about it if you'd like, but in John 8, I'll tell you a story about a woman that is brought in the act of adultery in verse 2, chapter 8 of the book of John. They catch this woman in adultery, and they bring her to the center of the court. In the very act they caught her, she probably didn't have time to put on a robe. I used to think that, she walks out into the center of the street and she's there in her Easter drama gown that we use or whatever idea of a robe. And this woman is caught in the act of adultery. She's drug out by her hair, naked in front of the whole court, in front of all of the people, exposed in all that she is. And this makers of the law, the Pharisees, the scribes, they say, what are you going to do with this, Jesus? She's caught in the very act. Here she is. What are you going to do about her? And Jesus looks at them and he says, hey, he who has sought sin, let you be the first to cast the stone. And when they heard this, they began to drop the rocks. The stones hit the ground. And she had a border. And moms, you are just like that. You are a border for your kids, especially when they feel exposed. I have a question for you in the audience that are not mothers. How many fires, how many bullets, how many stones, how much calamity has never reached you because of your mom? Think about it. And moms, this ability to die so your children can have life, it's not something to overlook. It's the very power that comes from the Father himself displayed in you. You are a border. I love oysters. I love to eat them. Any way that you can eat them, I love to eat them. Oysters are interesting little delicious creatures. And if you look at the way that an oyster is actually made, it's a very simple animal. It has two valves. It's a bivalve creature is what it would be called. It's got a number of different parts, but what's important to know is that these two valves are held together with this ligament that allows the oyster to literally be open to feed on the particles that drift its way, and then as the oyster grows, the shell has to grow. And it does this by enlarging its mantle through a substance called nacre, which it excretes from these valves. And once in a while, there's a little stone, there's a little like rock that kind of gets in there, and then the oyster doesn't always make the shell. It actually redirects some of that nacre to go around that little pebble, that little irritant that goes between the valve and their mantle, and then a process of time and patience and many, many days and months and sometimes years, a pearl is made. And moms, you are like an oyster. Look at your mom and say, or your wife or the grandmother, and just say, you kind of look like an oyster today. Some of you are going to get slapped later. Matthew 7, verse 6, Jesus says something. He says, hey, don't give what's holy to dogs, and don't throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and tear you to pieces. How do pearls even become into existence? They become into existence because they once were rocks. What happens to the woman at the well and the woman caught in adultery? Stones are dropped. They're exchanged for pearls in a sense. And moms, you're just like that. You take rocks that the world throws at your kids, at your family, and you give them pearls. And you drop them on the floor. But you have an extra, because you are prepared. You're like that. I've seen this in my own life with my wife and our son Xavier. Xavier is a 6-year-old boy who has an amazing set of skills. He's extremely smart, extremely outgoing. He's got some of these characteristics that literally will change the world. He's also got a bunch of characteristics that literally could destroy the world. See what's going on here? And his kindergarten teacher has had the privilege of seeing both characteristics. So parent-teacher conferences have gone one of two ways. They have gone where this is what Xavier does really well, and this is what Xavier could grow into. And the way that Xavier's kindergarten teacher expels this information to me and my wife, it's more like rocks. It's kind of hard to hear, and if Xavier heard it, it'd be a little difficult for him to process it. But when my wife takes that information and it goes through her oyster, she gives Xavier pearls. It's interesting to see that at the front row and then see it in my own life, how the world had rocks for me, and my mom just simply took those stones and made them into pearls. Moms, let me just simply say to you today, it will take patience. Moms, I know sometimes patience runs thin in your home, especially in different stages of your life. Whether your kids are old or grown, it's going to take patience. Perfection of your children is not the goal, moms and grandmothers. Expecting moms to be, moms that dream, moms that will have kids. Perfection of your children is not the goal. Perfection in your patience will get you a lot closer to it. See, patience makes pearls. Impatience throws rocks. And moms, when you celebrate Mother's Day, take a look in the mirror. Because there's more patience within you. And when you expend that and display that to your children, it becomes something of value. Something that only wisdom can create. I want to ask a simple question about when we read these stories of Jesus in Matthew 7 and John 8 and all through different parables of Christ. Where did he learn how to act like that? Like, where did he get that idea? Maybe it was from his mother. Maybe it was from her mother. Maybe it was her mother. And if you start tracing the mothers back in Jesus' life, you finally get to Ruth. In Ruth chapter 2, there's this scene of Ruth and Boaz. And Boaz is sort of a Montague, and Ruth is sort of a Capulet. It's like the West Side Story. It's like the Sharks and the Jets. It's like the wrong side of the tracks and the right side of the tracks, or reverse that, and it's the right side, the wrong side. There are two different classes of people going on here with Ruth and Boaz. And in Ruth chapter 2, Boaz does something that you're not supposed to do to that side of the tracks. He says in verse 15, Boaz commanded all of his servants about this slave girl that had come to literally come and work her way through. He says, let her come and harvest even among the prime wheat, and do not insult her. And his servants were like, wait a second, you don't want us to insult her? That's what we do. And Boaz is like, no, don't insult her. And you are going to purposely pull out for her some grain and the bundles and leave it right there on the ground that she may glean what she wants, and do not rebuke her for it. Give her whatever she wants. This is Ruth's interaction with Boaz. I mean, you talk about a romance. Where did Boaz learn how to do that? Where did Boaz learn how to treat Ruth? I mean, probably from his dad. I want to have my sons learn how to teach. I want to teach my sons how to treat a woman, how to open a door, how to take care of them, how to make sure that they're precious. I want them to have a godly picture of them, not as a possession, not as a thing, not as a what, but a person. Boaz could have learned that from his dad. But there's no mention of Boaz's dad in the Bible. I think that's intentional. We don't ever hear about Boaz's dad. But in Joshua chapter 2, verse 17, actually 2, verse 1, they went and came to the house of a harlot whose name was Rahab. We don't know who's Joshua's dad, but we know who we don't know who Boaz's dad was, but we know who Boaz's mom was. She was Rahab, the harlot. She was a woman of the night. That's Boaz's mom. Where did Boaz learn how to be this? I think he learned it from Rahab. Verse 17, they make an oath with Rahab that literally just reeks of grace. And Mom, I want you to know, mothers that are here, I think you are literally like pearls. You're like borders, but you're also like shovels and seeds. You're a border, a hedge, and you also take stones and make them into pearls, but you're like this. You like dig deep within your children and you plant things there that show up in their life. Rahab had grace planted directly into her heart, and then she shared this grace, and on it goes until generations later. I want everybody to track with this. You got Jesus talking to a harlot, to a prostitute, and he talks to her much differently than what a rabbi should. Where did he learn how to do that? Trace it back all the way. You could argue maybe it became a part of his family. And moms, whatever you plant within your children, it will show up generations later. And if you plant grace, it'll show up generations later, and it might just change somebody's life. That's why I think Mother's Day is hard, too, because there are things that some mothers have planted in your hearts that haven't been things that you want there growing like a beautiful flower. It's been an ugly root that maybe you've had to try and pull out because mom planted something else. And that's why it's hard. Because she's got that kind of power. She's a shovel and a seed, and she gets to decide what she's going to plant in us. And sometimes those things that are planted aren't exactly easy, and we deal with them. Moms, that's a lot of responsibility. You get to decide what you're going to dig into your children and your children's heart. And whatever you plant there, it'll show up later. Moms, choose to plant grace. It will cover. It'll cover many. Every single one of us can be encouraged and be challenged what mothers are. 3 specific characteristics. 3 ways that a mother interacts with the world. We're a border. Moms, you're a border. You're an oyster, and you're a shovel and a seed. I think all of us should honor our moms today. If you have a mother that's living, you should honor her. If she's not living, you should honor her. If you have a mother that was dishonorable, you don't honor her because she's honorable. You honor her because you are a person of honor. There's all different ways we could look at this, and from different situations of tragedy and triumph and good relationships and bad relationships. But I think that we have an opportunity to honor those mothers that are those borders, that are those givers of pearls, and are those that dig deep within us. You can honor them. I'll tell you the simplest way you can do that is with your words. Proverbs 18:21 says, power of life and death is in the tongue. What you say matters. There are many mothers that are even sitting in this room that are wishing their sons, their daughters, their grandkids would call today. They're hopeful with expectation. And Proverbs 13:12 says, hopes deferred make the heart sick, but a tree that life is a longing fulfilled. And there are mothers even here that are waiting for the call from their son because the hope is that they would be just said that they were the one. They would just hear those words, I love you, that they would just hear those words of life. So maybe today, go visit your mother at the gravesite and actually write a letter and put it in the Bible in Ruth 2. Because what's inside of you that's good is probably from her. Maybe you should call her. Maybe you should write her. Maybe you should go see her. But you should honor her. And I would challenge all of you to be the poet. Sometimes the most beautiful gifts that you give are the things that you make. Let your words flow freely today on your wife. Shower the mother and the patriarch of your home today with words, because those things do things. Words matter. What we say matters. You have a great opportunity to put pride to the side and speak from your heart. Let the things that you've been wanting to say be said. Don't hold back. Because your mother is a border, she is an oyster, and she is a shovel and a seed. So I thought about this. I thought about this in my own life. how I could do that. So I'm going to call my mom. Right now. With all of you here. And she's going to pick up, because I think she's gotten the hint from the 2 services before.
Hello?
Hey, Mom.
Hi, Eric.
Hi. How's it going?
Oh, it's pretty good. I'm just cleaning up the hospitality table at church. We just got done.
Well, that's good timing.
Yeah, great.
I got a picture of you up on the screen. You're on the left, and Stephanie's on the right. I found this picture of you two because you both look great, and Stephanie's single, so I figured she could use the exposure.
Good plan, bud. Good plan.
I'll give people your number if they have questions about her after.
You send them my way.
I think that you got the hint that I called you the other 2 services, that I'm calling
Yep.
you. I'm calling to tell you something.
Okay.
And by the 3rd service, you'd think it'd be easier. Because
I think it should be, but maybe not.
Yeah. But Mom, I think about you, and I wanted to tell you that I love you. And you're amazing.
I love you too, buddy.
Yeah, let me get through this, okay?
Okay.
I am who I am because of you. And I want you to know that I'm going to give the ladies here in the church a gift from the church today. We've got a shovel that's used to create borders. And I want you to know that you're a border. I preached about borders today. And that you are a border for me and for Stephanie. And you've shielded me from so much pain. And so many things that the world had sent my way. You were that wall, that hedge. So I'm going to ship you a shovel. And I want you to know that whatever you dig with it, I want you to know that that's you. You're a border. And I'm going to send you a pearl with it too. It's from Hobby Lobby. It's not a real pearl.
Okay.
So it's just for illustrative purposes. But I want you to know that you're an oyster.
Well, I felt like an oyster before.
I want you to know that you're an oyster, and doggone it, Bruce. Pastor Bruce is a pastor here. He used to be, and he cried all the time. I'm trying to get through this. You're an oyster, Mom, and an oyster takes stones, it takes rocks, and it makes them into pearls. And the world has thrown rocks at me, and the world has thrown things my way that would have stoned me a long time ago, but you've held on to them, you've processed them, you've made them into something of value. And I gotta tell you, as weird as it sounds, you're an oyster. And I want to send you some seeds. They're for you to plant, and you'll have no problem this, and they're going to bloom probably pink, hopefully, because that's the symbol of grace. If they bloom something else, call Pastor Jim.
Okay.
And if they don't bloom, it's going to totally blow the illustration.
Okay.
But I want you to know, when you look at these flowers, that you're a border, that you're an oyster, but you're also a planter of grace. Is that Dad coughing?
Yeah, he's coughing in his office.
Can you tell him to go in the other room? We're trying to have a moment. Good grief, Dad. Are you on the phone too?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I love you, Dad. It's not Father's Day. Beat it.
Love you too.
Just,
He's standing here crying.
I know,
So
just stay, just Dad, literally, just hold on to Mom, okay? Just hug her, because I'm not there and I need you to. I want you to know, Mom, that you've planted things within me that are going to come out in Xavier and Xander and Zeta. And if I can do just half of what you've done for me, my kids will be just fine. You are beautiful in grace, in power, in definition. And I move today to recall the list of all the things that you've done. But I've run out of paper and I've run out of ink. And my life has become the sum total of that list. And I may not always get to call you from a church on Mother's Day, but today I want to tell you that I honor you, that I love you. I want to wish you, Mom, and I want to wish everybody in here happy Mother's Day. I gotta hang up the phone. Mom, you still there?
Yes, honey. Yeah, I'm here.
Love you.
I love you dearly.
Proud of you, Mom.
I love you too, honey. We'll see you soon.
Bye, Mom.
Bye-bye.